can I preface this response by saying that I don't necessarily agree with anything that I'm about to say. I want to try three tacks, really. The first is the rosy picture. The second, a critical but not necessarily cynical picture, and then try and get close to the actuality. The rosy picture is that for the first time since incorporation, the FE sector has a minister who understands the sector and is a champion of it, and at every opportunity will tell you that he's a champion of FE, and it does seem that there's a significant number of people who believe that. He seems to have shifted the agenda in terms of relationship between learning and the economy, turned it on its head, because for well over a decade now, we've been told that learning serves the needs of the economy, that the purpose of learning and developing skills is to make the nation more prosperous. That's always struck me as rather bizarre, really, because unless the purpose of economic prosperity is surely the interests of the people who inhabit the nation. And John Hayes does seem to be very, very conscious of the need to redraft that balance so that, as Susan said, the social and welfare agenda are one and the same. And he is, I think, genuinely trying to get a picture of the appropriate, the more appropriate relationship between those two. There's a commitment to protecting participation and to developing skills at the highest level and skills also at the very basic introductory levels. An emphasis on literacy, numeracy, etc. And the route through to doing that is to give all the players in the emerging terrain freedom and flexibility, provided, of course, that they have in place appropriate systems of governance. And that touches on a number of issues that we've dealt with in these seminars. That's pretty rosy as a picture, actually. It does really look optimistic for the future. I have to say that from my perspective, it doesn't quite feel like that. It doesn't feel that there's yet an appropriate balance between the needs of the economy and the needs of the learner. It doesn't feel that literacy and numeracy are being foregrounded. On the contrary, the attacks on our ability to provide classes in literacy and classes in numeracy for people who are thirsty for it, on my patch anyway, has been very seriously curtailed. And it doesn't feel yet that we have a government that is committed to freedom, as I would understand it, to work on the ground locally. That's 1B. 2, the critical picture, or the cynical picture. Whatever BIS is doing is done in the context of a central government drive that I think is not badly spelt out in Open Public Services, the white paper that was delayed and has just been produced. But right at the heart of that, I mean, I can't remember all 5 of the principles, but there's choice, diversity, accountability, and access, I think. There's a 5th, but I can't remember what it is.
Fairness and accountability.
Oh, yeah. Well, who'd disagree with that? And the 3 most important probably are choice and diversity, because the principle that underpins that is that not the public, but the individual has a right to choose in the market. And in order for the market to work effectively, there has to be diversity of provider. Now, we have seen across the course of these seminars what that might mean. And I've been astonished at how polite we've been about the potential changes to the market. It seems to be, on incorporation, FE colleges were the only players in the market to speak of, when we were told to be business-like. But no new players were allowed into it. And as soon as anybody developed a scheme for getting new players in, they were quickly, I was going to use the word shafted, but investigated might be a better term for it. And they were told not to use the monies that way, because there was a real desire, if you like, to make sure that public monies, public assets were geared only to public value and not to profit making. This change is likely to be quite different. I'm not going to make a prediction, but my guess is that it will not be very long before for-profit providers can move into the FE sector and into the HE sector and into schools. Michael Gove, who's not in BIS, is on record as saying that he sees no ideological objection to private providers moving in there. And you can call them social enterprises till the cows come home. Or mutuals are slightly different, I'd accept that. And the possibility is that you're going to have all sorts of players in it. And I'm not objecting to that. I could only object to that if I could say, hand on heart, the only appropriate providers or users of public funds and public assets in the interest of public value are public sector workers. We have not got strong enough a record of doing that well to say that nobody else should be allowed to play on that terrain. But if you are going to do it that way, and this is where the Open Public Services White Paper, I think it reveals a real problem, and it struggles with it. If you're going to do it that way, you've got to have forms of accountability that will inevitably not allow absolute freedom to operate in the market, because otherwise you've got a potentially toxic mix between private providers, deregulation, and you can see the tills roll in the eyes when they look at the UK economy and see 40% of it is in the public sector, and they're going to get access to it. And then, okay, rosy picture, slightly more critical, though I don't think cynical picture, and all I'm doing is saying that there are dangers in that. And then there's the actuality, as I see it. I was at a Guardian seminar last night on whether or not there is such a thing as public service ethos. And in no time at all, among the assembled from all sorts of walks of life, we descended into a polarization between the public sector and the private sector. And it wasn't far off, public sector bad, private sector good. There was also a very strong identification of the public sector with local government, which is that's very difficult for us. And I have to say that I did not recognize in any of the depictors of the public sector, FE colleges or sixth form colleges, the way that the public sector was talked about was not part of my experience working in a college. In many respects, actually, I felt that we were already, I don't want to be complacent about it, but we were already in a position, and we've learned a lot from what happened in the early years of incorporation. We are, I think, maybe not universally, but very, very largely, a mature sector who knows how to use public funding and manage public assets in the interests of public value in a very, very innovative way. My fear is that while John Hayes is a champion, and I have no reason to disagree with that or to dispute that, we will be caught up in that other agenda that characterizes us as part of the public sector, and we will be told that we have to do things this way, as though they were relevant in a sector that's already moved well away from the practices of local government and the practices of other public sector organizations. The only other thing I do want to say is, if it doesn't feel like that to me, can I tell you, it doesn't feel like that to the students either. I have never known kids, most of our kids are 16 to 18, I've never known that age group so politicized, feeling so demoralized about the future. No jobs, no affordable houses, and the prospects of higher education are frightening them. So the rosy picture doesn't quite match the experience of young people. I don't have enough experience of, I've got some experience of adult education, but I can tell you in the small area that we work in, it doesn't feel like that to the adults either. They do not yet see opportunity in this. And I'll finish on just to try to get at that notion of what it feels like to the students. And I'd like to be optimistic and say that freedom and flexibility really could make an enormous difference if what that allows us to do is to be much more responsive at the local level and far less centralized in control than we have been under previous administrations. But from the kids' point of view, it's as though, you know, they're listening to Homer Simpson. The future is our children, unless we stop them now.